Welcome to Sideline Sisters, where we empower women in sports one conversation at a time. We celebrate the women who make the WNBA legendary while providing our unfiltered thoughts and analysis on the game. Winsider is expanding its network to include more diverse voices that are knowledgeable and passionate about the WNBA. Hear from the women who are redefining WNBA coverage and hoops talk.
I'm Jasmine Harper.
And I'm Pedraza, and you're courtside with the Sideline Sisters. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Sideline Sisters. We are your hosts, Candace, Pedraza, and Jasmine Harper. Jazz, how are you doing on this lovely WNBA Trade Deadline day?
Yeah, actually, it's the only day this week that there hasn't been a hurricane knocking outside my front door and windows, so I'm actually very happy. We didn't really get anything spicy today. We got a little bit that we're going to dive into, but overall, very underwhelming trade deadline. But it'll probably be the last one that's this underwhelming, considering everything with the CBA. Players are under contract until this season. Everything's going to change in the next few years. So, yeah, looking forward to some other ones. But this one was a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like it had some surprising trades. I feel like the Alyssa Smith trade was the one that kind of like kickstarted everything, but it ended up kind of being overshadowed by everything that happened this week alone. I feel like the two big ones that like really stole headlines, I guess you could say, would be the move from the Lynx going out and getting DJ Carrington, adding her to their roster, and then also the move by the Seattle Storm to bring in Brittany Sykes from the Mystics, which, yes, I would love to get into that one because I think, in my opinion, short-term winner from this trade deadline. I do love that fit for Brittany Sykes with the Storm. Long-term winner, I think, is still definitely Washington because they kind of did what I wanted all the bottom teams to do, which is just secure yourself for the 2026 and 27 draft. And I feel like they did that beautifully. They have a ridiculous draft lineup for next year, and they'll be getting Georgia Amore back as well, which is a win in and of itself. It sort of ends up becoming a pick as well. What were some of the trades that really caught your eye from this week and just close to the deadline in general?
Yeah, I think the move by Dejanay was a little surprising, but also not so surprising. Because for one, I'm kind of disappointed in Dallas. You made all these moves during the offseason, kind of wasting cap space with these really big contracts, including Dejanay, who had about $200K on the cap space. And, you traded for her girlfriend to kind of get Dejanay, and then you trade her girlfriend away, and then you trade Dejanay away. So it kind of just seems like something that they tried that didn't necessarily work out, but it's like, did you actually try? Because technically, I don't think there was a reason to trade away Alyssa Smith for Dallas. I think maybe Las Vegas had the bigger need. So they, kind of went after her a little bit more, but Dallas could have obviously said no. They'll say no about multiple other players on the team, who people think should be traded, but they didn't say no for Alyssa. So I think that just kind of speaks to, Dallas is still in that same boat. Trial and error for the past, how long have I been covering them? Almost like 2021. So this would be my 5th season. Yeah, crazy. But I do think Dejanay going to Minnesota makes Minnesota even more competitive. She can take over on defense and isn't relied on to be one of the top scorers on the team. I think that's why she was kind of out of sync with Dallas. They were asking too much of her. And she wasn't able to flourish in her own specific position. And then, of course, Brittany Sykes to the Seattle Storm. I really hate to see Alicia Clark go. I really love her. She's one of my favorite all-time players. But I do understand that, she didn't have much success with Seattle this season. So while I am disappointed, I do think that she adds a level of stableness to the Washington Mystics for, maybe at least for next year. We never really know what's going to go with her because, from my understanding, somebody said that she wanted to retire in Seattle. So I'm not really sure how that necessarily worked out with her being traded to Washington. So if she does see Washington as a place where she can retire and, call home for the next season or two, I think that'll definitely help the rookies that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like something that I hadn't thought about until you just mentioned the fact that Dallas kind of put together this like master plan in the offseason to bring in all these veterans to try to surround around Paige Beckers, who they knew they would be
Yep.
getting once they got, and won that first overall pick.
Mhm.
Um, and then blowing that team up and sort of blowing up, I guess, that perceived chemistry that she also had with Dejanay Carrington and Melissa Smith, just based on,
Mhm.
social media and whatnot.
Mom and
Um,
dad.
exactly. Like they blew up a family. Like that's really crazy. So my thinking just now is they have been seemingly subtly courting Easy Fudd to Dallas for, I mean, there's two reasons, obviously. One being she could be the number one overall pick. I'd like to see how she does in her final year with UConn. Lauren Betts also has something to say about being the number one overall pick as well for next year's draft. But if Dallas is really
Maybe
trying to like unite, yeah,
Olivia Miles as well. Sorry.
yeah, that too. So I'm like very curious to see how much they value her being their pick in order to, let's say, sweeten the deal, so to speak, with Paige in
Mhm.
Dallas. But then at the same time, do you even trust Dallas to be able to A, keep you together on the court, and B, be able to build around you with a coherent team? So that just kind of makes me pause a little bit when it comes to Dallas and their roster construction. And yeah, I feel like they went from being a team that I could see maybe fighting for a postseason spot to just completely bottoming out. And I'm happy that Dejanay Carrington was able to land literally from one of the worst teams in the league this year to the literal best. So I'm very
Yeah.
excited to see what she does for them. And she had a great debut. So
Mhm.
even better.
And I love a good Dallas Wings dragging from time to time. It's been a minute. So I'm just looking at her who's stats right now.
Yeah.
The only protected contracts they have, well, veterans at this point are Arike Ogunbowale for $249K and then Maisha Hines Allen for $203K, who was also somebody who was rumored to be shopped on the trade deadline. And then you have Ty Harris, Diamond Miller, who was acquired through the trade. Her and Maddie Segrist are on par for next year. And then, of course, you have the rookie scale contracts of Paige, Isaiah James, and JJ Kennelly on the books. I think, I think for the future, you have a foundation with maybe Paige. I don't really know about Isaiah and JJ. And I only say with Isaiah, they play her kind of inconsistently. So I don't really know if they're actually going to give her a chance to flourish like we've seen with some people in Dallas. JJ Kennelly is undersized. And I think Isaiah and JJ also have that chemistry with Paige that the team kind of wants to preserve for now. Don't know why they were okay with moving on from Dejanay and Alyssa, but not two rookies. So it kind of, hey, not here to judge. But at the same time, I do think with Diamond Miller, Maddie Segrist, Paige Beckers, and then maybe a combo or both Isaiah James and JJ Kennelly, I think they're moving towards the future of next year. Arike isn't on the books past the season, so I definitely think it's time for her to kind of, fly out of the Dallas Wings nest. But I think ultimately, this season was really just a fail for Dallas, and I'm very disappointed in how they handled everything. Um, I never assumed that they would be fighting for a playoff spot. The at best I gave them was maybe a eighth seed, but the way the landscape and how everybody's loading up, especially for this 1 year, I didn't really think they had a chance in the playoffs. But at the very least, with arguably somebody who came in as rookie of the year, and as well as Dejanay Carrington, who's an all defensive team, Aisha Hines Allen has championship experience. It's just disappointing how it all just kind of fell apart.
Right. And then I think with them too, like you see that a team is able to succeed in both A, being competitive, but also B, being able to build towards the future in like the Washington Mystics, for example, and their moves at the deadline, where they were able to get off Brittany Sykes. And then also today, they traded Aaliyah Edwards to the Connecticut Sun for just a pick swap from JC Sheldon. So they just continue to sort of like consolidate their picks and also their roster heading into next year. But they're also still fairly competitive. And no one is sitting here assuming that they will make the postseason, especially after trading away arguably their best player in Brittany Sykes.
Yeah, well,
But
not anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And so, but they now have like that future security, and I feel like they have something building
Mhm.
around Sonia and Kiki, whereas Dallas, you have Paige Peckers, and I'm not really sure what the vision is beyond that. And
Yeah.
I don't trust their ability to be able to build around her. However, they seem to be on track to get the number one overall pick. I ran through Tankathon like 15 times before we got on, just hitting the sim lottery. I was like, let's see, how good their odds are. Very, very good. They won it like most of those
Sad.
times that I, ran it through. It was either them, Seattle or Minnesota getting that top pick. Would be hilarious if Minnesota got the number one overall pick
Oh my
and won
gosh,
the
please.
championship. That feels likely. So Dallas, if they got that number one overall pick, great. You can then build around Paige and another top prospect. Fantastic.
Yeah.
But like, who is going to want to come to your team seeing how you handled your veterans this year?
Mhm. Yeah.
And
That
also the coaching staff, which is an issue for another day.
yeah, that's a whole different conversation for another episode.
Yeah.
But I will say, I do respect Washington for loading up for the future. I do think they could have probably snuck in as an eighth seed, but somebody has to put it into a perspective for me, like where are they really gonna go? You're gonna go to the playoffs and then you're gonna get bounced out. Maybe if we go ahead and trade away our best player, who's probably gonna leave us next year anyway, we get some draft capital back in return. She goes off and win her ring. We kind of start to reset for next year. And we're in August. And that kind of reminds me of another team who we, haven't talked about yet, the Chicago Sky. We talked about not trusting coaching staffs and front office to kind of, utilize players in their best ability during this period. And I think Chicago, is on that track. What do you think?
I agree. I feel like with Chicago, I was feeling the way you felt about Dallas heading into the season, where I did not think they were going to be very competitive. I didn't think that they were going to be a secret postseason team. I really did not enjoy the acquisition of Ariel Atkins. And that is not because of Ariel Atkins. That's just because of the fact that it felt like the front office was trying to like learn how to swim for the first time, and to do so got into an Olympic sized pool. You know what I mean? Where it's just like you were trying to take too many steps forward without building the blocks to get there.
Hmm.
Um, and so you got Ariel Atkins, but you also let go of a top pick in last year's draft that would have probably been Sonia Citron, who would
Hmm.
have ironically been an excellent fit for your roster this
A
year
perfect
because you
fit.
needed shooting desperately over
Mhm.
the last couple of seasons. And now you have Ariel Atkins on your team as a rental, but like a rental to go nowhere. You're not making the
Yeah.
postseason. Um, Angel Reese again is putting up absurd numbers, but unfortunately, that she cannot be, the only person performing to that level every night and
Mhm.
them still play winning basketball. So I don't trust their direction right now. Speaking of the draft lottery, just odds wise, they're probably going to land somewhere within like the top range of picks because they own, it looks like Connecticut's pick. And so when I've done the simulated lottery, it seems like they're coming out like fifth around that range,
Okay. Not
which
bad.
is not bad at all. And so they still have that ability where they can build out their roster through the draft over the next few years. But this year feels like such a way, I don't want to say a waste, but it just feels like they had lost an opportunity to keep building upon what they had going,
Hmm.
especially with Angel Reese as sort of like the centerpiece, because we saw what they could have done last year with that roster. And it just feels like the momentum just got totally squandered for what feels like for no reason other than just ownership and the general manager just not wanting to be competitive this year, but disguising it as wanting to be. And like, look, we went out and got Ariel Atkins. We clearly do want to compete, and it's just like that's not how
Yeah.
you do it.
How you do it at all. I think one of the biggest missing pieces or a domino that fell a little too early was Courtney Vandersloot getting hurt. I think she was really supposed to
Yes.
be the glue for everything, which was intentional on her part because that's also what she wanted in New York. She wanted a bigger role. And when you have somebody of that significance go out, just kind of like how now Angel Reese has been out for a couple of games, and we've seen how the Chicago Sky have performed during that time without Courtney or without Angel. So I think also with trading that number 3 pick, I do think that Sonia Citron's game and how we've seen that she's been able to play next to Kiki Iriaf and Shakira Austin and company, she would have been perfect for the Chicago Sky, playing next to Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso, because she'll have that same motor, she'll have that same engine, but also the same technique. And then she's also able to kind of balance off of Courtney Vandersloot. They could kind of take the pressure off of each other on the court. And I think that's what they were missing. I think Ariel Atkins is a really solid player. She was definitely on the championship team and everything, but I don't think her specific fit was with the Chicago Sky this season. Maybe during the 2021 season when they had Emma and Candace and Ka, the championship team. But
Mhm.
overall, I just don't think that this was her year to fit with the Sky. Maybe she's interested in coming back next year. I believe that was a part of the conversation they said about the reasoning for trading the number 3 pick. But I am kind of disappointed that they didn't do anything for the trade deadline. But also, if your 2 best players aren't going to be back, well, Courtney's not coming back, period, this season. But Angel, I don't really know what the timeline is like for her right now. So there really isn't a need to kind of make a move if your 2 best players aren't available and won't be within the immediate future. So disappointed, but not surprised. And, that's another 2025 roster that I feel like was kind of put together last minute and
Yeah.
no expense.
Yeah. I completely agree. And then there were a few other teams aside from Chicago that didn't do anything at the deadline, but where I kind of agreed with the move to not really make too much of a change to their rosters. One of them for me was the LA Sparks. They have been really clicking lately. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. They beat Indiana most recently. They've been looking pretty competitive, and now they have Cam Brink back, which is such a huge turning point, I feel like, for them defensively because they've really missed her presence in the paint. Um, and she's on a minutes restriction, but she's been looking pretty solid in the time that she's gotten on the floor, especially defensively. She has 9 blocks already through 3 games that she's played so far for the Sparks this year since coming back. So I'm very curious to see how far they can go, but that's a team where in the off season, given the moves that they made, especially to go and get Kelsey Plum in that trade, I was expecting them to be a bit more competitive, and they're finally hitting that stride. And after I think we considered them and graded them as a team that's just too little too late in terms of just being able to put in enough to make it to that 8 seed with Washington's moves, now I feel like it'll be them and the Valkyries kind of battling it out for that last playoff spot.
Yeah.
So that should be really interesting. And I feel like both of those teams would be very fun, competitive
Hmm.
8 seeds in the postseason, especially Kelsey Plum, because of course, why not?
Yeah. I mean, at first when we talked about it and Angel was healthy, the trade deadline and everything was coming up, we said Chicago at first because we felt like they had a little bit more fight in the tank. But I do think Cameron Brink coming back does change things and helps LA more. Even if she's not playing hefty minutes, she's probably, well, if she was playing a full season, she would probably be all defense. And I just think that Azurá Stevens has really been carrying the Los Angeles Sparks. The way she's been playing for really this entire season has been a career year for her. I think she's really carrying them. And I understand that people like to give Kelsey Plum and De'Erica Hamby credit. But also we need to give some of that to Azurá too. Because without her, I'm pretty sure they would be looking a little bit more like Chicago. But I do
Mhm.
think ultimately that it will come down to lost. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Connecticut, Dallas, Chicago, and Washington are just automatically wiped off the map. And then for spots, number 8, it's Golden State and the Sparks right now. Wow. I mean, the
Yeah.
A's are still questionable, and we can talk about that as well. But I do think that the Valkyries and the Sparks, that's very interesting. I didn't predict that at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, with Vegas, I wasn't surprised they didn't make any moves. I was watching RA and Rachel's stream earlier on Bleacher Report about the trade deadline, and I saw people talking about like their like hypothetical. What if LA or the Aces went out and tried to go trade for Marina Mabry? Like, yeah, that would have been an excellent idea had they not already traded for Melissa
Right.
Smith, and then only now started to figure out, oh yeah, and Joel Lloyd plays better off the bench for whatever reason, and now we have no other assets picks to really give up for the foreseeable future. And those picks are going to be so unpredictable that no one's going to even want to acquire them from us. So, yeah, Vegas is a little confusing and frustrating. Asia has started to play like her normal MVP self in the last few games for Vegas. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games also. So I feel like they're starting to sort of solidify their spot in the playoff order, but I don't see them jumping over. Honestly, even a team like Indiana, I don't see them jumping over them.
That would probably be the only team that they could jump over unless somebody went on like a crazy losing streak.
Right. Exactly. So I would have loved to have seen Vegas be a little bit more active at the deadline, but they don't have a GM. They made their move, and I wasn't expecting them to go out and do anything else after that Melissa Smith trade.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on Vegas? 'Cause I know you have many.
At this point, I've come to reality. I'm not floating in the clouds anymore. But I do think that with the Aces, they could have made a move, but I don't know what it is about the contract of Kirsten Bell that they're just so, hey, we're going to keep this on the books for all 4 years. Oh, go ahead. But at the same time, when you want to win a ring, and even I'll throw out there, I'm sorry, Kia Stokes, Elizabeth Kitley was waived. Deja Kelly was not brought on the team. Somebody else was waived too. I'm blanking right now. Tiffany Mitchell, she was also waived. We're waiting for people who, which I agree with, except maybe Liz Kitley, who don't really give enough production for what you're looking for a championship team that's 2 years removed from, their title. And Asia Wilson said it best, I think, during their post-game conference. Like, if you're not here to like really play how we like to play, what the Aces expect and everything, like don't show up. And that's sad that that's the feeling in the locker room or in the air right now about the Aces because they did make moves. They did wait players, they did make trades, and it's still not working. So I
Yeah.
think overall, I'm disappointed in how the Aces season went. I didn't think they were going to do anything by the trade deadline, but it would have been nice. I don't see the Marina Mabry trade happening without removing KB, Dana Evans, probably Kia stuff. Like you probably would have had to move at least like maybe 3 pieces in order to get her. And you don't have any like formidable draft picks right now either. So I think, I don't know if Asia's going to win MVP this year. I really think it's actually up in the air. I think AT might actually be able to slide in and get this one, kind of like, no disrespect, like how Stewie kind of slid in and got hers. I think this might be her season to actually get it done. But I think overall, the Aces need a GM.
Yeah.
If you are looking to keep the best player in the world on your team, I need to see a 50-page document about who you want on the roster next season, what the cap space and everything is going to look like. And like, there just needs to be a different aura and air about the Aces right now. I said it in our mid-season article, in our last episode. Nobody's scared of the Aces, and that is a very disgusting feeling. Even some people are like scared of the Seattle Storm. You never know what the Storm are going to do. One night they show up, they're whooping ass. The next night they show up, they're getting their ass whooped. So, I mean, we don't even have that with the Aces. We're expecting them to kind of struggle in most of their games. So, Becky and Nikki, I don't know what's going on in the front office. Mark, if you need to come in for, some conference calls, let's do that. But let's make sure Asia has a team that's as formidable as her because that's what the organization is all about. everybody wanted to be the Aces. That was the saying for like the past 2 years. And now nobody's even looking in that direction. So sad.
That is crazy because just speaking as a Liberty fan, thinking about the last couple of years, like the feeling that I used to get from watching the Liberty and Aces play against each other is how I feel when I watch Liberty play like Minnesota or Seattle or Phoenix now or Atlanta. I
Mhm.
do not get that same like, ooh, like this is like a playoff, intense, this is a
Yeah.
potential playoff matchup type game, unfortunately, when they play the Aces. It's more like I'm excited to see Asia Wilson. Um, and this will probably still result in a win for New York, even though she's on the floor, which should never happen. It literally should never
Yeah.
happen when you have a player of her caliber on your team. Um, yeah, I would say the Aces, I could still see them, of course, making the postseason. I do think that like the 5 through 8, in my opinion, it's going to end up shaping out to be kind of what we see now. So Indiana, as of this August 7th, is when we're recording this episode. They are 17-13. They're in the 5 seed. Seattle's 16-14. They're in the 6. Vegas is 16-14 as well. They're in the 7 seed. And then Golden State is in the 8 seed right now. But Los Angeles is like right on their tail. They are, I think, only a half game back of that 8 spot. And Saturday, they play against each other. So that's going to be huge for just postseason implications. If there's a tiebreaker involved, that will be very important to look back on that game. And we'll see how it happens. But the way LA has been playing, I don't know. I could see them sneaking into that 8 spot. But I think the 5 through 8 more or less will be the same. The only thing I can see changing is Golden State falling into that 9 spot
Mhm.
by the end of the season.
I do think with the way the standings are now, they actually would be some pretty good matchups. So, like, the first round would be Minnesota versus Golden State or the Sparks. It would be Golden State, though, because they have the higher record if, the season ended today. New York versus the Aces. Everybody loves a good matchup. Atlanta versus Seattle. And then Phoenix versus Indy. I think that would be kind of dope, actually. We don't
Those are
need too
good.
much move. I don't want too much movement, but it's definitely going to be some variation between 5 and 8, like you said. I think Minnesota and New York are kind of in their own world right now. New York is still trying to get acclimated to Emma Meesseman being on the team as well as Stewie being hurt. They just got JJ back, and Sab has been like a little streaky. But they're still the number 2 team right now, even with 10 losses. Atlanta and Phoenix, they've been battling for that 3 spot for a while. I just think one team has to become a little bit more consistent. They both have like 2 and 3 game win streaks, so I think they're trending in the right direction. And then Indiana, Seattle, and Las Vegas, that's kind of where the variation will start. And I think that it's any man's game at that point, which is unfortunate because I wouldn't want to go up against Minnesota or New York. I'd probably take my chances, trying to get Atlanta or Phoenix or something.
Yeah, 100%. And then there's also the factor of something we didn't get to talk about because we did our midseason episode and then took a little break. Now we're back recording today. Caitlin Clark's injury timeline for Indiana. We don't know when she's going to be back. The team has been pretty lax about her return date. They said they just want her 100% healthy before she comes back. I don't know if they expected Indiana to remain as competitive as they have been in her absence. Kelsey Mitchell has been like a top scorer in the league this season after having a super slow start to the year. Aaliyah Boston continues to be super dominant. Arian McDonald has been like a revelation for them as a hardship signing that just turned into an entire season signing for them. They also just signed Chloe Bibby. They have been really, really surprisingly great, honestly. And I'm curious to see if they end up actually getting Caitlin Clark back by the postseason, because that would be hard, I would think, for any team that's trying to scheme for a postseason series against them, because now you have to take into consideration not only do I have to defend Kelsey Mitchell, who's shooting the lights out every night, but I also have to defend a completely healthy Caitlin Clark. So
Yeah.
very, very interesting with Indiana. And I would say the same for Atlanta because Ryan Howard is going through some injury woes right now.
Oh my
So
gosh. Yes, I forgot she's injured. And they've
yeah,
been playing
so
so good without her.
exactly. And so I feel like with Atlanta and Indiana, they're sleepers in that I feel like they could play. They haven't even hit like the level that I think they could hit yet
Mm-hmm.
due to those injuries. So once
Yeah.
they're fully healthy, they will, I think, look even better than they currently do. So those are two
Mm-hmm.
teams I would be personally scared to face off with in the postseason. I would say same for Phoenix because of Alyssa Thomas, and then also Satu Sabali, who is back. It sounds like
Mm-hmm.
healthy and back from her break. And as Clea Copper also begins to get
Went
back
back.
into the rhythm of things.
It's tough out here to end the season. I don't think it's been this tight in a while, actually. I think the past few seasons, it's been pretty clear who's been going to the playoffs and who's not. But this little muddy middle area is starting to get a little bit bigger.
Yes, 100%. And then another thing we didn't even get to touch on was Kayla Thornton being out for the season for Golden State. So I think that's going to factor in a lot for their ability to stay consistent and stick with that 8 seed, although they've still been playing very solidly, especially with like Veronica Burton and Tip Hayes
Mm-hmm.
and Carla Leach. Like they have been still, in my mind, scary as a team. So
Yeah, their
we shall
game
see.
Aces last night was actually pretty good. I was working
Yeah.
it for BRW and Carla Lake. I didn't really know much about her when she was on the Dallas Wings roster, but getting to actually like sit down and just watch her a little bit more closely last night, and she was playing really tough. All the Valkyries were playing pretty tough against the Aces. I mean, I think that had to do with their last little scuffle with Jewel last time, but also Tip Hayes is on the team. Kate Martin, you kind of want to get a little revenge in the organization you just left. So I think they played pretty hard last night. And it's insane how well the Valkyries play at home. I've never seen a team have such a battery in their back. Maybe the Liberty, but even still, y'all almost got beat by Paige in the wing, who was doing up Stephanie Talbot. So, hey, I can't speak too much. But Chase Center has the vibes. I need to go experience it.
Yeah. And hopefully they're going to reveal their mascot soon. They have like an egg sitting outside of Chase Center right now. So
I really hope I just hope it's something good. The egg it just gives dinosaur.
It gives dinosaur. I also like, why wouldn't it be like some sort of like
what is a Valkyrie?
mythical creature, like a flying one? I don't know. Like I'm picturing like a warrior with wings. And that's not something that I think would come out of an egg. Like I feel like it is going to be a dinosaur.
Let me see if the Valkyries have a pet. The definition of a Valkyrie wasn't helping whatsoever. I don't know. I just hope it's a really cool mascot. I'm okay. Everybody can't be Ellie. Like, it's fine. But we don't need more Sky Guys or
No.
even the Phoenix mascot kind of.
Yeah. No.
I don't like
all good. All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we end this little trade deadline special?
I think, I do have something I want to ask your opinion about.
Go for it.
Candace Parker and Aaliyah Boston have a podcast together. It is called The Post Move Show. And I'll be honest, Candace has been like talking spicy on the podcast. She was ranking players in tiers from A to E. Of course, she didn't really put anybody on E. I think the lowest tier she started with was a C, and she placed Angel Reese there. She also talked about DeWanna Bonner being booed in Indy, and she said, what did you expect? But she also mentioned that it's a sign of respect, and they're not booing DeWanna because she's a bad player. They're booing her because she is a good player, but she left their team. Who everybody, when you fall in love with a player on your team, you kind of want to see it. So I think ultimately my question to you is, how do you feel about WNBA players now stepping into the role of post-retirement? Because I think we've also seen it with Angel McCoughtry and Haley Van Lith
Mm,
when she made comments about her. How do you feel about WNBA legends, greats, vets, whatever, being on podcasts and talking about the current era of the WNBA? Because, it's definitely different from what they had to be in and things like that. But some people reference jealousy, and I don't really see it like that, but I could be wrong.
yeah, I feel like, first of all, I feel like with player and like ex-player podcasts, there is a way to do them that doesn't come across as, I feel like, over saturating the already existent player podcast market. Like,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, what Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe do makes sense because they do kind of celebrate both current and past
Mm-hmm.
legends of the game and like stars of the game. Um, they platform them. Whereas this podcast so far, and I have not listened to a full episode yet, so I'll put that
Same.
out there first. But the clips that I've seen and the clips that I've seen aggregated have a lot to do with Candace Parker's commentary that's very similar to what her coworkers at TNT do when they're talking about the NBA, which is
Mm-hmm.
to say disparaging a lot of the younger players who don't maybe necessarily give them the time of day. I don't think that that's what's happening with Candace Parker because players literally always name her as their GOAT. They're always naming her as their inspiration on and off the court. So I don't think it's a matter of her feeling disrespected by the current like class of players in the
Yeah.
WNBA right now. I think that she's just coming at it from a standpoint of I'm a seasoned veteran, I'm a seasoned player, and I can tell you with certainty and with authority, this is the right way to go about doing things, and this is the wrong way, and the way you're going about it is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that's just an older player mentality. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of what it's giving to me. Um, and yeah, the whole like Angel Reese commentary thing was very strange just because I know Angel Reese has said nothing but great things about Candace Parker in the past as well. And that's been documented. Um, I didn't agree with her reasoning for ranking her so low on her list. I disagreed with Candace Parker's take on the players in the WNBA All-Star game. I don't think their performance should
Mm-hmm.
have any say in whether or not they're owed better pay from the league. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a ridiculous comparison. And also, this might be a little spicy, but I just don't think that the pairing of her and Aaliyah Boston makes sense on a podcast. Just because I do find that Aaliyah Boston is, I think, a bit more relaxed and laid back. And I feel like in the clips that I've seen of them interacting, Candace Parker is just such a force of a person that
Mm-hmm.
she is just offering her take. And Aaliyah Boston is just there like, yep, sure, like, great. Happy to have heard that take. Let's just move on type of dynamic. So I feel like it's a lot of that too, where they just haven't found that like happy medium as a recording duo. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I love to hear from players outside of press conferences and outside of media availabilities. But at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, it's beginning to feel just a little bit oversaturated and a little bit too angled towards what is going to get me interaction.
Yeah. The only thing that I will say, because we have experience,
Yeah.
they're gonna clip the spice for the podcast.
Mhm.
Um, Aaliyah's not gonna give you the spice, which is why they never really clip her parts. I have seen some Aaliyah clips, but they're not like Candace's. For example, like on the DB thing, I think she was kind of like, what am I supposed to do? We're not necessarily teammates anymore. I don't feel any ill will, sorry, towards her. But at the same time, like I'm in game mode. So it's not really like I'm not gonna tell the crowd, oh, you guys stop, stop, stop. Like, it's a part of sports. It's what comes with the territory. But that's not gonna get you as many clicks as Candace saying, well, what did you expect? And I think in one podcast she had some face paint. I don't know what was going on, but I do think overall she does sound. I'm not gonna say she sounds like Shaq. Maybe Chuck just a little bit, because Shaq says
I
some
could,
wild
yeah,
stuff.
he
Um,
does.
Chuck will ask a wild question, or make an assumption. I don't think that Candace is too, far out of her range. But I do think that I'm a person who loves to hear multiple perspectives anyway. Even if I don't agree with you, unless it's something when it comes down to moral and ethics, we can talk about it. I don't have to agree with you, but I can see it from your point of view. And I can do that with Candace and also understand, like, I didn't necessarily agree with her on the All-Star bit. I definitely understood what she was saying. But at the same time, for the WNBA having such a condensed schedule, can't expect people to want to play full-blown basketball a 4-day vacation they have and have to go right back to work on Saturday or Monday. Like, it's not going to work out that way. But I did find it interesting that she's getting a lot of pushback and a lot of people saying that she doesn't know what she's talking about. She has 2 jerseys retired in the Raptors,
I
or
was gonna say, like,
this season, she has 3 rings, one from 3 different organizations. The list can really go on. Rookie and MVP in the same season is enough for me. I don't even know if an NBA player did that, which I don't think that they have. So I
no.
do give Candace some credence, in her legendariness to be able to just be a legend and say what you want to say. But at the same time, publicly, it is nice to show some camaraderie with the younger players. Even if you're texting them behind the scenes and all the relationships are fine, at least in the public eye, look like you're championing them a little bit more than you are. So I can agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just quickly, like on the DB thing too, I would like to think that she's right, that they were booing her because they respect her. I will be very honest though, as somebody that has been in the fever space a lot more this season, just because of helping out at the day job, covering the team. I don't think that that was the case. I think the fan base was genuinely upset at her performance this season with the team. The fact that she was released after being asked for, or asking for a trade or a move off of the team. They felt like she had come in, ruined the locker room vibes, which that's like totally unsubstantiated, but people have been running with that rumor regardless. And then ran off to the team that she always wanted to get back to, which was Phoenix. And that is why they were booing her. They felt genuinely disrespected by the way she was moving with the team. And I think it's ridiculous because that happens sometimes. Sometimes the fit is just not there and it's not perfect as you want it to be. And there are also other free agent signings that worked out great for Indiana that I wish that fans would focus a little bit more on, like Natasha Howard, who has been playing spectacularly for them. Sophie Cunningham has been solid for them off of the bench. Like Sydney Colson has brought vibes. Like there's like nothing to really complain about if you are a Fever fan other than maybe being upset that Caitlin Clark's been hurt for a majority of the season. So I'd like to agree with Candace Parker that that's the case, but unfortunately, I don't think people like to be. I think people are looking at the Fever fan base with just a little bit of rose tinted glasses on, a bit, especially when it comes to Joanna Bonner, when in reality, they were just being straight up disrespectful, in my opinion.
I can definitely resonate with all of your points. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode of Sideline Sisters. Thank you all for tuning in. Ace, what can we expect from the Liberty? Are y'all going to win some games this week?
Oh my God. So they play Dallas and Minnesota again. I think they get the win in Dallas. Yeah, I know. They get the win in Dallas. Minnesota, I'm going to give that one a loss because I just don't see. Actually, no. That might be competitive because Nafisa Collier is actually not going to be playing in that game. However, I'm not writing off Minnesota because they could win without her. I cannot say the same for New York without Stewie for some reason, which is absurd to me. They should be able to win games. You still have Jonquel Jones. You still have Sabrina. Natasha Cloud has been playing well. And now you have Emma Mieseman. So maybe that one will be a little bit more competitive than what we saw in their last matchup. I need a streak because all my New York sports teams are just collapsing in front of my eyes. Like this is not a good time. So I need them to stick it up somehow.
Totally understandable. My Aces play my other team, the Storm, on Friday. I'm going to be in distress all night long, and it's a 10 p.m. game, so pray for me. And then on Sunday, they play the Sun. So I'm excited to see how that goes. Tune in to the next episode of Sideline Sisters. We're going to be trying to, again, be more consistent. I can't do anything when there's a hurricane at my door, and, got to stay safe. But thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe on every streaming platform that you have with us, as well as YouTube, where we automatically go up if you don't have streaming services. And I think that's it for today.
All right. Catch you guys in the next episode.